We're Easter people. We're Easter people. We're not Good Friday people. As I said, the gospel of Springsteen. Everything dies. That's a fact. But everything that dies someday comes back. It comes back differently, but it still comes back. Started literally downtown as a German evangelical church, downtown St. Louis. It was there for decades and then eventually moved to what's now North City. Our history book literally says that the reason why it moved from downtown to North City is because the neighborhood around the church became less German. And so it moved to North City, where it stayed for a very long time. And some of our oldest members grew up in what was called the St. Louis and Warney church building in North St. Louis City. And some of their fondest memories of St. Peter's, and when they think of St. Peter's, they still think of St. Louis and Warney. Traditional church building and the stained glass windows, and the baptismal font that is in our current building was in that building. And it wasn't until late 60s or 70s that we officially began St. Peter's, formerly here in what was farmland at the time. So again, the history of white flight, continue moving out of the city, continue moving north from downtown to North City and then to Ferguson into the county, St. Louis County.
My name is Ruth Ganaway. It was Dorman before I got married. And my mom was a Mashmeyer. And the Mashmeyers go back to almost the beginning of St. Peter's down on 14th and Carr. But it seems like my great-grandfather was treasurer for like 30 years. So the generations just went on. So if a great-grandfather, grandfather, mother, and me, and now my kids, it's just St. Peter's has been our life.
In the late 80s, early 90s, the demographic of Ferguson was probably around 70%, 75% white, with 25 to 30% black. And within probably 5 years, from what I understand, that demographic totally flipped. And the decision then in the late 90s was to stay here in Ferguson. The conversation was, this is where we have come to be, this is where we have kind of come to rest, and this is where we shall stay. And that was, I think, a very important decision, and has kind of set the tone, really, an important tone for St. Peter's. A lot of people have it in their head that there's the church and its ministry, and then there's the cemetery, as if they're two separate things. But really, we're so intertwined. The cemetery plays such a vital role in everything that we're able to do. Our endowment is created in large part because of the cemetery. A lot of our annual budget is fed through the profits of the cemetery each year. A church our size, with 125, 130 members, that worships less than average attendance, 50 on Sunday, couldn't have a staff of 6 were it not for the resources that the cemetery provides. A lot of our budget, a lot of our ministry and what we do and what we're able to do in terms of our staffing, in terms of our outreach and justice ministry is made possible because of the cemetery.
Ferguson is a racially diverse community. Probably now it's about 70% black, self-identified black, and 30% white. And so coming to St. Peter's, to a historically predominantly white church in Ferguson, Missouri, which is, predominantly black, sort of personally, I knew going in that there was going to be some real hard racial justice conversations that were going to happen. And in some ways, for the ministry that we did here, the murder of Mike Brown and the uprising that happened after just accelerated that need very quickly. And so we were having frank conversations on what does racism look like in 2014, right? It's not 1960 anymore. It's not going to be as obvious and apparent maybe as we would like to think, but it's still there.
Michael Brown is buried in our church cemetery. We own what I think is one of the largest cemeteries here in St. Louis County. Our interim minister at the time, Frank Proctor, reached out to the Brown family and helped make arrangements for Michael Brown to be buried in our church cemetery. And so he is buried there.
That was such a weird time. It was just a weird time for all of us in this kind of strip area. So first off, let me say that St. Peter's has been making a space for racial discussions since before I came. That's part of the reason why I came. This is the church that is actively attempting to break that silence in the Christian community around racism and that type of stuff.
But also some of the conversation that was really encouraging was often we settled back into, okay, what can we do out of this uprising that's happening? Our community is speaking out and crying out, and so what do we do? And much of the conversation was, well, we keep doing what we're already doing, right? Which is building this resource center that can house the nonprofits that we house now.
I think once the spotlight was shown on Ferguson as resulting from Mike's death, the resource center was already in the works once that happened. I do think Mike Brown's death made the church realize just how essential and necessary the resources and the organizations that were going to be coming into that center were so needed, desperately needed in this community as a means of healing and providing opportunities within this community, for one. It also did shine a light that these needs and some of these resources and some of these situations were a lot closer. A lot of the in the history and the ethos of the church is, again, and we've all done this. We've experienced this, I think, in our growing up when we talk about mission. This is why the shift from mission to justice is so important. Mission often seems to be out there, over there. We do mission trips to go somewhere else, but justice and injustice is right here, right next to us, literally right outside our doorstep.
So we're being a resource to the community in, the warming center. So when it's below freezing, we open up for those who need space to sleep inside.
We provide 2 meals, a dinner, a breakfast, shower, laundry facilities, and safe space. We are a resource through a mental health and a physical health clinic that meets once a week, free of charge. As long as you have a photo ID of some sort, you can come and receive basic services. These are real needs literally right here, and the unjust systems that lead to that, the addiction, the unemployment, all of the cycles and systems has shown a light that's literally right here.
I try to describe all the good things that we have done and that we want to continue to do at this location. And again, the resource center, I think, is probably the biggest thing. Some of our other actual church programming has kind of dwindled over the years. Other programs have kind of taken a back seat, or we don't really have the numbers to support a lot of the other activities that we used to do. But through the Community Resource Center, we are able to reach out with those groups that are housed here and provide those services.
My history has always been here at St. Peter's. I've seen St. Peter's grow to capacity down on St. Louis and Warning and then diminish, and I'm seeing that here, and I'll be honest, it saddens me, but I know there is different ministries that we were doing that are so important that the volume of people, the number of people, they're still doing the things that are important, as St. Peter's has always done.
We have our unhoused friends and neighbors coming to worship. They're coming to our Bible study afterwards. They are becoming very much a part of our worshiping church community. It's not about them and us, it's all about us and we now. And that's about a large community is becoming much larger now as we become a much more just community in that way. And so I think all of that is connected.
Those who are here want to be here. Those who didn't want to be here left, and we're using those funds to ensure that the community around us thrives, and that and it just happens to be African Americans. It could be others. Homelessness is not just an African American problem. Children, and being stressed out about your children is not just an African American problem. Counseling, is not just an African American problem. It's a community problem.
I don't remember much from my time in seminary, but I do remember this. Jurgen Moltmann, the Church of the Power of the Holy Spirit, talking about the two types of tradition. The little t tradition of churches, the things that each congregation does that makes it unique and special, and those tend to be the things that most congregations really lift up and hold on to. And then there are the big T traditions of the Church Universal: communion, baptism, worship, stewardship. And Moltmann said then that when the little t traditions overshadow the big T traditions, then the church is engaging in idolatry. How do I pastor to the Miss Ruths in these moments of fear? By highlighting and helping her remember the very things that she mentioned, the baptism in that font. She spoke of the altar, the communion table, reminding her that those big T traditions transcend all of those things, that the grace and the love and the compassion found in all of those things can guide us and heal us and serve us in the midst of all of that, because that's where God is truly found, is in the midst of those things.
I'm happy that these old white men invested wisely and continue to watch our investments, and that we can give money to people, to people and organizations that are doing the work, that we may be small and we can't do their work, but there are other people in the community that's doing that work that we may be interested in.
For me, church mostly looks like serving. The Warming Center is church for me because I get a chance to serve people. And I get a chance to be with people who are in need, or be serving those who are in need, people who have a lot less than me. And I don't do it from like a missionary, I'm going to save you. I do it from I'm being with you in this moment type of thing. My concept of church is I love how I learned this phrase here, the church universal. And so thus any act of the Christian faith anywhere to me is church. If you have God in mind and you're doing it for genuine reasons, it's church.
The phrase or the language that used to be were the missional work. We've been talking a lot in the recent years about using that phrase, using that language, and that mission work is a springboard towards justice. And that we are moving from missional work towards justice work. And that's, I think, how we move forward. We can move forward in our legacy. We can move forward in our work by building on who and what we have been throughout our history. Not by looking back, but just by building on the foundations that have already been built over the last 180 years.
So there's this conversation among the religious and non-religious, the Christian and non-Christian, about this concept of the church is like collapsing. And so I don't think the church is collapsing, but I think that a lot of the systems that used to run, at least in the United States, a lot of the Christian population, I think they're slowly breaking and tearing as more people come out about really everything: sexual abuse, financial misconduct, conversion therapy, racism. As people speak out about those things, as people step out of the place of neutrality, the church as we know it is going to be destroyed in the long run. And so comes this Church of Jesus that is actually about justice, that is actually about serving the people who are not in power. And so it is a painful, but it is an important process if we are actually serious about doing this Jesus thing. But I'm also very excited for that day and hopeful, because that is when we will see things change for the better, and we can actually have, a little piece of heaven on earth. So that's what I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.